Hi, this is Julie with Beadaholique, and today I want to show you how to make a really simple strung pearl necklace using an Elegant Elements clasp. And for my project here, I'm going to be using this beautiful little petite Elegant Elements clasp with that white pearl in the center. And before I do that though, you can see I've got some other stuff on my table here, and these are some recent additions to the Elegant Elements collection at Beadaholique, where you can find all of these to purchase. So I'm just going to quickly show you some of these gorgeous, gorgeous clasps. I want to show the scale in my hand because some of these are quite large and just beautiful. So you see that it just pulls out like that, really nice closure. And a lot of these are multi-strand clasps. So you see here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops. You could do a 5-strand necklace or bracelet. If I had that, I'd almost use that as a focal bracelet or put it on the back of my neck. Or actually that would be beautiful as a center focal in a necklace. You could do that too. You'll see that these have a beautiful finish. They are rhodium plated and gold plated. And all different sizes and different number of loops. Like this little guy here has 2 loops, so it would be a 2-strand. So really quickly, a heart, these wonderful double ones. And then these guys here. So these ones do not have crystal, but they've got that beautiful plating, that lovely filigree. And they do look great on both sides. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 strands that you can accommodate here with those 7 loops on each side. Beautiful pieces here. So yeah, I quickly wanted to show you these just before I dived into how you would use these. So I'm just going to make a single strand bracelet, but you would use the same technique on any of these on the multiple loops. So I've got this little guy right here. I'll pull out his little tab. So I'll separate out the 2 clasps. And for this project, I'm going to be using some beading wire. I've pre-cut myself 16 inches. I have some little bead stoppers to help me along the way, some Swarovski crystal 6mm pearls, some crimp bead covers, and I have a pack of crimp tubes. So this one actually is nice because it gives me 3 sizes, a 1.5 by 1.5, a 2 by 2mm, and a 2.5 by 2.5mm. And for this particular one, I'm going to use the middle size. So there we go. Just scoot some of those guys out. Those are the 2 by 2mm size. And then for my tools, I have, as you can see, a little pair of scissors. I have a pair of cutters for my beading wire, a crimping plier, and a chain nose plier to apply my crimp bead covers, and then just a ruler to help me along as I go. So to make a simple strung bracelet, and I'm going to teach you how to crimp a crimp bead in this process too, which is what you'll be doing for all of these clasps if you choose to do a stringing project with them. I'm going to take the beading wire, place the tail end into a bead stopper, and I'm going to string on 1 crimp tube. Your crimp tube size is really going to be based upon the thickness and weight of your beading wire. So I have a nice medium weight beading wire right here. But if you have a heavier weight one, you'll want to use a larger crimp tube, or if you're putting multiple strands through it. So I'm just stringing on my pearls without a needle. The beading wire is stiff enough that does not require a needle. And I'm going to string on a number of them until I end up with what I think is the length I want for my bracelet. A standard bracelet length is usually around about 7 inches, give or take. Everyone's wrist is a little bit different. But if you are making this as perhaps a gift or, giving it to a loved one, 7 inches, 7.5 inches is usually pretty safe. So you see I'm just adding 1 bead at a time, stringing them on, and they're looking nice. You can add other beads to this design, of course, too. You can add little metal spacer beads, little crystal rondelles. If you go to beadaholique.com, you can see a wide selection of beads available for sale. We have a lot of projects showing you how to use them, too, so that might give you some more ideas for your stringing projects. I'm just adding my beads. It's quite soothing. So this really is the same process you would do whether you had a single strand clasp or a multi-strand. And if you didn't want to do a strung project, you could always attach jump rings to these little side loops as well. You can do some type of project like that. So it doesn't always have to be stringing, but stringing is really nice and pretty easy to do. Okay, we're getting there. Let me see how much I have here. So I've got my ruler, and the clasp itself is only going to add about 1/2 inch. It's quite a small little clasp. So I've got almost 5 inches. Okay, so I just need to add a few more. So I think I'll want to add a total of about 6.5 inches of beads, and then I'll allow that 1/2 inch for my clasp, and it might go a little bit over 7 inches by the time I have my crimp tubes and my crimp bead covers, but it'll be pretty close to that standard bracelet size. Okay. It's always good to have a ruler handy as you're designing. You can kind of get a good idea of what it's about to start looking like here in terms of length. So yeah, it'll be a little over 7 inches, but probably won't go past that 7.5. So that's about right. I'm going to add another crimp tube. So I've got all my pearls on there, and now I'm ready to actually do my crimping. If you're not familiar with a crimping plier, I want to show that to you right now. This is a special plier just for crimp beads, and it actually has 2 notches up there at the top. So the one closest to my handle here, the back notch, is shaped much like a crescent moon or a kidney bean. And that's what we're going to use first to crimp our crimp bead. And that's going to help mimic the shape of that crescent moon. And then we're going to fold it over with this little oval shape up towards the top of the tip of the plier. So it's a 2-step process. So I want to scoot these down a little bit more so I have a little bit more beading wire on each side. There we go. And you can see that 16 inches was really plenty. So I'm just going to feed it through that loop and then back down through my crimp bead. And you can go through a couple more beads too if you so choose. Just went down through one more bead, and you're pulling it together like so. So you're creating a much smaller little loop up towards the clasp, and I want it to be able to move still. And also, if you are going to be applying crimp bead covers like we're going to be doing in this project, that adds a little extra space too. So you want to make sure that you have plenty of room right there. It's not too tight. So to do the actual crimping, go ahead and place your pliers over your crimp tube and set it in that back notch and simply squeeze and give it a good squeeze. So when you take it out, you see that it's really now shaped like that crescent moon. And then I actually like to go from the top. I find it a little bit easier, so I'm going to be putting it in the front notch. I'll try to show you here. And it's standing upright in that front notch. And I'm going to squeeze, and it just folded it over onto itself. So it went much like this. It's a little hard to see because it's so small. And at this time, I'm going to apply a crimp bead cover. So that's what this little guy here is. It basically looks like a bead that's open. I'm going to grab it with my chain nose with that opening facing outward. And I'm going to slide it over my crimped crimp bead. And now I'm just going to gently squeeze it together. So basically you're bringing that bead together. And it is soft enough that you can shape it a little bit. So you can go from a couple different angles. Okay, so that side is now finished. Now I'm going to trim my tail at the very end. I like to trim my tails together. You could trim yours now if you wanted, but it's just a little easier for me, I find, to trim them together at the end. So now we're going to repeat the same process on the other side. So we're going to find our clasp that has the little tab part to it, and thread our wire through it. And now go back down. Now this end right here is a little bit kinked, so I'm just going to trim it. Okay, so loop back around and down through the crimp bead. And I'm going to do that one other bead as well. if it will go through it. Sometimes it can be a little bit hard when you're working with something like a Swarovski pearl. It is a faux pearl, but they do have a lovely coating on it that sometimes makes it a little bit hard to go through that bead. You don't have to go through the adjacent bead, it's just a preference. So at this point, I think I'll just let it be how it is. And now I'm going to pay special note. When I make this loop, I actually want to make it even a little bit wider because I have to be able to press this tab down to secure my clasp, and I don't want my crimp bead cover getting in the way. So I've got my stringing here. There's no large gaps. It's still flexible. I haven't pulled it so tight that it won't move on me. So I'm ready to crimp my crimp bead. Same exact process. I'll make that loop just a little smaller, not much though. Okay, so I have it in the back notch, crimp, so I'm gonna squeeze it and put it in that front notch to fold it over. Again, I do like to go from top down. I just feel like I get a better grip on it. Okay, and at this point I am going to trim this tail because it will be easier to trim before that crimp bead covers on there. Okay, and I've got a lot of nice room right there so I can still work with this clasp. That is a little tip that you tend to learn by experience and having pulled it too tight where you can't work with that little tab. So do try to leave that little extra space. Okay, we're just going to put that crimp bead cover over it and squeeze. And look for where that seam is. Okay, and just shape it. And now we can easily grip that tab. So we're just going to go back here, trim off our little tail where it exits that pearl. And then we're going to close our clasp. There we go. So we have a really pretty, very simple strung pearl bracelet with an Elegant Elements clasp. And that is the exact same technique you would use to attach any of your beads to any of these loops on these multi-strand ones as well. So I hope you enjoyed this pretty quick and easy video on how to make a strung bracelet. And you can find all of these clasps, this project, and many more items and ideas at Beadaholique.com.